U.S. President Donald Trump ramps up deportations south of the border. Advocates here in Canada are calling on this country to suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement. Just as a reminder, the agreement means most asylum seekers who arrive in Canada from the U.S. to make a claim here are then sent back to the U.S. But advocates say America can no longer be considered a safe place for people who are fleeing persecution. So for more on what all of this means, the changes and the speed, I'm joined from Trenton, Ontario this morning by immigration lawyer Chantal Deloche. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
We have witnessed Trump signing several executive orders aimed at speeding up this process of deportation for illegal migrants and asylum seekers. What elements of those orders are you most concerned about, and how does that affect what could happen at our Canadian borders?
Yeah, there are a few that are of particular concern. The primary one is the order not recognizing the gender identity of transgender persons in their chosen gender. So what this means for migrants is that there's a very good chance that transgender asylum seekers in the U.S. may not get a fair adjudication of their claims anymore. In addition, the U.S. uses incarceration of asylum seekers quite a lot, where Canada does not. Donald Trump has also signed an order stating that transgendered persons now will be incarcerated in a facility according to their birth gender. So that would mean that a transgender person who's undergone a transition to be a female, for example, would be incarcerated in a male facility, not only with other asylum seekers, but also with criminals, which is a safety issue. There's also...
Go ahead, Chantal.
Go ahead. Yeah. No, I was going to say also that they're restricting access to lawyers and they're defunding some legal aid programs, which means that a lot of asylum seekers who previously would have had legal representation will no longer be able to access that, and their chances to be successful will go down.
Now, the Safe Third Country Agreement, or the STCA, was the subject of a recent court challenge, and the argument there was that it violated the right to life, liberty, and security under our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that act of sending them back. But the Supreme Court ruled that while asylum seekers could face possible violations in the U.S., the agreement contained sufficient safety mechanisms to mitigate any risk there. So if the Supreme Court has ruled the agreement is sound, why should it be suspended?
Right. So we have to understand that the Supreme Court made that ruling in the context of very specific facts, which existed at the time that the litigation was launched. So that was in 2020. Although it took a while to get to the Supreme Court level, it was based on 2020 fact situation. So we fast forward now to 2025, where I think the reality of deporting asylum seekers without fairly hearing their case is much less speculative at this time than it was 5 years ago. The Trump administration version 2 has shown itself to be much more aggressive on every level compared to version 1. And I think that the facts are sufficiently different now that a court may rule differently now.
If Canada were to suspend or scrap a Safe Third Country Agreement, it could, one of the thoughts is it could trigger a wave of asylum claims here. We've seen the results of this before. So how prepared is Canada to deal with a potential influx like what we saw last time?
Not at all. We're not at all prepared for that. I think the concerns of people that raise issues around, concerns about an influx, if we were to back out of Safe Third Country, that's a very real and a very valid concern. Our system is already quite strained. The Refugee Board is pretty backlogged, and it's getting worse all the time. We don't have significant resources to handle a huge and sudden influx of people, not to mention the social strain as well, things like housing, employment, schools, hospitals, that sort of thing. Right. And Safe Third Country, by the way, works very much to Canada's benefit more than the U.S. because we don't have a huge phenomenon of people coming to Canada and then trying to go to the U.S. to seek asylum, where the acceptance rates are much lower. Actually, the flow is very much in our direction, so it's kind of protecting us.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see if the political will exists on this side of the border, given the fact that we are also talking about trade and tariffs and border issues all at the same time. I know that it will definitely weigh into this conversation. Immigration lawyer Chantal Deloche, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.